home with the war that has plagued the nation. The war that we see now is part of the wider story for democracy for the Sudanese people, starting in 2019, where we toppled the dictator of 30 years through a peaceful revolution. But we've grown to learn that the infrastructures of the dictator still remain and are being seen currently with the war between the RSF, the militia RSF, and the Sudanese military, where unfortunately the people are being caught in the crossfire. So for all of us here living in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we've called New Zealand home, but the real home for us is Sudan. A lot of our connections, we have aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, still back home in Sudan that have been displaced due to the war. So while we stand here today and we ask for solidarity and recognition of the crisis that's really plagued our nation, we have a huge call for the New Zealand government to support us in our time of need. Right now we've been working for 4 weeks to get a statement or something out of the government to support us in bringing our families here. Firstly, supporting our families through visa categorizations to bring them over here. But as we have a banner here, a wider call for the mass displacement and the refugee crisis that has been triggered here in Sudan. So we call on the New Zealand government to be equal, to be honest in acknowledging the crisis, and to give us the same stand that they've given to other crises around the world. So now I'll take this opportunity to call on a variety of community members to shed light, but we thank you all for your support here today. And yes, it's full of emotions. You will see some tears, but please, Lena Fair, if you want to make your way up and share a few words.
You'll forgive me. I actually don't have anything prepared, but like a lot of the people gathered here, my phone is full of notes that we've been jotting down to explain to non-Sudanese friends what's going on and media what's going on. So I'll open up something that I've written. And so the situation that we have going on in Sudan right now, there's a situation in which it's not exactly a civil war. We're dealing with two authoritarian warlords who have a history of attacking civilians, kind of dueling it out in our cities. The fighting has shown no signs of slowing. It's trapped millions of ordinary Sudanese civilians in the crossfire, leaving hundreds of civilians dead, perhaps thousands at this point, thousands injured, hundreds of thousands of ordinary civilians, like a lot of our extended family, fleeing to the borders of neighboring countries. And unfortunately, it's only the 1% who are both financially and physically able who can even get to the borders, because it's such a long and exhausting journey via buses and vans, which are now running at extremely inflated prices. We're talking upwards of $1,000 US dollars, and at this point, probably higher than that. And well over 18 to 36 plus hours to get to borders that were previously a short, cheap plane ride away. When this lucky minority get to any border, they're not guaranteed free passage due to the continued enforcement of strict visa requirements, especially at the Egypt and Ethiopian borders, despite the violent ongoing situation and the fact that they are now refugees fleeing an active conflict zone. The crisis has quickly become a humanitarian crisis of epic proportion due to the situation at the border, and because it has rapidly resulted in the rapid deterioration of the country's main services, airports, banks, and especially the healthcare sector, one that was already quite fragile. Currently, nearly 80% of hospitals are now completely non-functional, and the remaining ones are operating at a wildly reduced capacity, powered by generators due to poor or no access to electricity since the start of the violence just about 3 weeks ago. So what about aid? Nearly 2 weeks into the violence, the UN finally sent some extremely needed medical aid to the country. However, these have only managed to get to a tiny minority of people, due in large part to the difficulty of moving things around when ceasefires don't hold. Social media has been incredible. Sudanese people, both within Sudan and in the Sudanese diaspora, have mobilized in mass numbers to convey transportation information, visa and border information, safety information. But why? Why are ordinary civilians doing this work? It is due to a vacuum of government assistance, a vacuum of international media attention. And that's why you have ordinary citizens like ourselves writing to the government and organizing these mass protest movements, because we're just not getting the attention that our families need at this time. It's an acute time need. Many of the people standing here right now have direct family members who have passed away due to the journey to the borders, who have passed away due to a lack of access to medical care, who have passed away due to the fact that they don't have the right visa to flee. And so what we're asking for is just help and just a sense of equity in our calls. Everyone deserves help when they're in need. Thank you.